themselves. So I chose a basic topic here to start with, and that is process data. Now, the fact that you're on this webinar means that you care about productivity and you care about your processes. So I thought I wanted to talk to you here specifically about the data that you need to do that. We're going to talk here in a moment about what a process is, and I have some visuals for that. But in order to improve a process, we have to take a look at measurements. As we all know, the garbage in, garbage out problem. So those measurements are very important, and our understanding of what the data is and what kind of data we need to do this is quite important. Now, in the IT world especially, when we mention the word data, everybody has a tendency to say, well, gee, that's no problem. Our processes either are great or can easily be great because we have data. Boy, do we have data, right? I mean, those of us in the IT world knew what a terabyte was before the rest of the world knew what a megabyte was. So data is no problem. Unfortunately, the data that we have and deal with isn't the data that we need typically to improve our own processes. It's different data. It's stuff that other people have given us to store and manipulate and report on and do things with. So it's more like stuff in a warehouse, and it's our job to manage the warehouse and get things in and get things out. It has nothing to do with the processes that we are charged with creating and running in order to make that warehouse work. So the data that we need is really different than the data that we typically have and know about. So that's what the HA is that you're looking at. We think we have what we need, and it turns out we typically don't. So I'm going to walk you through why I think that's true and what it really takes. Now, let's talk about what I mean by a process. We want to improve a process. So a process is a series of things that we do or that our systems do that we have designed that take inputs of various types and turn them into outputs. If we have an output, then we have a customer. The customer takes the outputs and does something with them. So that customer has had some value created for them by our process. Excuse me while I get used to this interface for flicking these slides. Okay. So let me talk a little bit here about what processes aren't and what processes and what they are not. Processes are not parts of our company. They're not our departments. They're not our applications. They're not our computers. They aren't any of those things that we typically have our lives focused around, that we get money allocated to buy, that we have people assigned to build and maintain and all that kind of stuff. Those aren't processes. Processes typically are invisible. They are the flow of transactions or parts or data or reports or activities. If this were a manufacturing talk that we were talking about, they would be the flow of stuff going through a manufacturing plant where raw materials of some sort come in and out come iPhones or pencils or whatever it is that we're making. So in the IT world, things come in and things go out just like any other business. And those processes are largely invisible. Those processes also cross all kinds of lines. So you should be looking at a picture now that shows departments. So the vertical green lines here or the bars represent various departments in a company, and the blue arrows are the invisible processes that are causing something to happen and be transformed, transactions happening, reports happening, queries happening, and in the end, something happens that a customer cares about, and a group of people over there on the right are our customers. The customers are there for a reason. I mean, we are there for a reason. Without those customers, we don't have a job. So the customer frequently always has, whether we know about it or not, they always have things that they care about. They have specifications on characteristics of our outputs, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. So Processes are not departments. In the IT world, processes cross applications, so we're immensely concerned with IT applications of various types, and processes cross those. The applications are not the processes. In some instances, a true business process could exist entirely within a single IT application, or could exist within a department. But just because the application is there or the department is there doesn't mean that that's true. And it's a rare case that in fact it is 100% within a department or an application. And I'm going to give you one other slide here, and that is platforms. So multiple computers, multiple things, multiple cloud things, virtual platforms, real platforms, all of those things, they aren't processes either. So our business processes that the customers care about go across our departments, across our applications, across our platforms. So who's in charge of the process? If we want to have good processes in our business, we need to have somebody who knows them, who flowcharts them, who monitors them, who's in charge of the process itself, and not just the platform, and not just the department, and not just the application. And for people who are starting off with process improvement, that's one of the first things they do, is to make sure that these are clear and have somebody who's responsible for the process and its performance. Otherwise, we're going to have trouble. I'd like to give you one quick example here. I'm going to back up a slide to applications and give you an example. I live in Atlanta, and when I first moved to Atlanta about 10 years ago, that was the start of the high-speed internet explosion in the United States. And I was quite excited to be moving from a city where I had dial-up internet access to a place where I could get a cable or DSL high-speed access. And high-speed at the time was 1.5 megabits per second download speeds. So compared to what we could do with the modem, that was just mind-boggling. And I called my phone company, and I decided I was going to use a DSL service, purchase one. So I called my phone company, knowing that the DSL stuff comes over my telephone line. I already had a telephone line. I might as well go with the same company, because if anybody can make it happen, they can, right? That was Bell South at the time. They're now part of AT&T. And they asked me 3 questions, and the 3 questions were, what is your name, what is your address, and what is your phone number? I gave them that answer, and I told them, to the best of my ability, those 3 simple answers, and they told me, well, we're very sorry, Mr. Bentley, but we do not have DSL service available at your location. Now, I was crushed, and had I known this coming in, I might have bought a different house. That's how important this was to me. But it never occurred to me that it wouldn't be available in a neighborhood like I was in, so I was quite disappointed. I then did something quite irrational, and that is I called my current dial-up internet service provider, who at the time was Mindspring, because they were advertising DSL services available in Atlanta. Now, I knew that if Bell South couldn't do it, Mindspring couldn't do it either, because Mindspring was using Bell South stuff. But I called them anyway. Truly an irrational thing to do, right? And I got the same 3 questions. What's your name? What's your address? What's your phone number? And the answer that came back was, yes, it's available. When would you like it? How about tomorrow? Fine. So the stuff was overnighted to me. 1 day later, I had my DSL service running. Now, 5 years later, doing a process improvement class at AT&T, by that time Bell South had